Well, it seems that pretty much every single province across Canada is recognizing that, hey, our citizens need some financial help as we're hitting the winter, but each and every province has a little bit of a different idea on exactly how they're going to get this financial help to Canadians, whether they're calling it something like the inflation reduction relief or maybe the cost of living relief payment. Each and every single province has a different name for it and different people that are going to qualify. So today we're going to go through every single province and talk about what is available or what has been available or what's going to be available in the future. So for your province, likely in the description of this video, you'll be able to find a timestamp. So if you only want to see your individual province, you can just click straight to that. But I think that it is helpful to get an idea of what other provinces are getting and what's happening in other places in Canada so that you can hold your own leaders to account to either do a similar thing or praise them for doing something that you think is better. So let's dive into it because this is going to be a little bit rapid fire. We're going to start with Alberta, and this is something that was just announced in a press conference yesterday from Alberta's new Premier Danielle Smith. A little bit controversial. Some people are big fans of her, some people are definitely not. But this is what's inside what she's calling the Inflation Relief Act, something that actually hasn't been brought to the Alberta legislature to actually put forward, but she says this is going to get done very soon. This is $600 over 6 months, so total $600, perhaps $100 a month on average to parents for each child under 18, as well as this $600 going to every single senior. The one stipulation being, well, you got to have an income, a family income of under $180,000 when you put it all together, as well as $600 over 6 months. So this is kind of a joining of these two things for anyone who's on AISH, that's kind of like the disability program in Alberta, as well as income support and PDD recipients. This next point is actually something that the federal NDP is trying to get put forward on the federal level for all of Canada, but they're going to suspend the entire provincial fuel tax for at least 6 months, so saving a little bit at the pumps there, as well as all of these programs listed on the screen, changing this so that they're indexed to inflation, meaning that if we continue to be in this high inflation environment, then those benefits will go up at the same rate that the cost of living does, at least if you trust the CPI as the measure of inflation, as well as a $200 per home rebate in consumer electricity bills, putting a cap on rate spikes over the winter for energy and for heating costs, as well as a couple of points here, investing in food banks and low-income transit passes. Because the bill hasn't been released yet, there's not a lot of clarity on how you can apply for these additional benefits, these top-ups, or if you're even going to need to apply at all, if this is just something that's going to be done based on your previous year's income tax and sort of sent directly to you. But I'll keep you posted on that as we get more details. But now moving into Saskatchewan. In Saskatchewan, it looks like they're getting a SATC, stands for Saskatchewan Affordability Tax Credit, a one-time $500 payment to all eligible residents to help address inflationary pressures. So this is, like I said, a $500 payment that will go to many different people in this province. We're going to scroll down here to take a look at eligibility. Only a few things that you need to fulfill here for eligibility. Let me actually zoom in a little bit to make it clearer. You have to have filed your income tax return prior to now, October 31st was the deadline, the cutoff date for filing your last year's taxes, which were actually due at the end of April 2022. And then also 2021 as a resident of Saskatchewan. So you have to have put in your taxes as a Saskatchewan resident, and you have to be 18 years of age or older by this December 31st. And we have clarity here on the application. You don't need to apply for this one if you qualify based on your tax return. Well, you're going to get that money sent in the mail directly to that residence that you had listed on your tax return, so sent directly to your house. Now let's take a look at BC, and this one is a little bit unique because they've actually sort of lumped in their affordability payment into another program that they have in BC called the Climate Action Tax Credit. This is a quarterly credit that goes out to people in BC to sort of account for climate action that's going on in the province, of direct dollars to consumers. But they've actually lumped into the qualification of this Climate Action Tax Credit a new affordability tax credit that's going to sort of go on top of this, increasing the maximum amount that you can get from the Climate Action Tax Credit. They've actually enhanced this once already, increasing the amount, but now they are adding this affordability tax credit onto the previous tax credits that were coming as this Climate Action Tax Credit. So you can see here we have enhanced payments for October 2022 and for January 2023. So the total yearly sums for this enhanced payment, as well as the payment with the affordability credit added onto it, is $521 per person, and that doesn't matter if you are single or if you're married. You can both get this if you're in a partnership, as well as $138 each for all other children. The actual increase that you're getting as a part of this for October is $164 per person and $41 per child, and that's part of the enhancement for the October payment. And the second one, the affordability credit that's being applied, coincidentally is exactly the same as the previous enhancement, meaning that both in January as well as this past October, you would have received a sort of increased amount than you would have typically with this climate tax credit. And like many benefits, this one is income tested. So if you're single and you're making roughly $80,000 or more, you're not going to be getting this credit. And if you're married to common law with $128,000 joint income or more, you're not going to be getting the credit. You can sort of see the stipulations here. With one child, that's $140, and with two children, that's $150. So it just sort of scales up there based on your different situation. You can sort of pause the video to take a look to see which bracket you actually fall in. Now for Ontario, they've taken more of a targeted approach, targeting specifically people who are on the disability program in Ontario, ODSP, as well as very low income seniors. These are the two categories of people that Ontario is targeting. Let's start with the seniors here, because this is a doubling of the gains amount, which is a sort of guaranteed annual income system in Ontario. And right now, depending on your income as a low income senior, you could be getting a $250 up to $83 per month for this program as it stands currently. Now, this is something that's looking to be doubled by the Ontario government. So depending on what you are already receiving as part of the gains program, that amount will be doubled for 2023, adding around or almost $1,000 per person if you are in the sort of maximum amount here, receiving $83 a month. Instead, now as of January 2023, you'd be receiving $166 per month as opposed to $83. So targeted supports here for low income seniors. Oh, and I forgot, there is one other benefit in Ontario that we're going to go over just after this one, that is some more support for parents. But going first into this ODSP change, currently the way ODSP works is that you have to be making under a certain amount of money to receive your full benefit, and when you make over that amount of money per month, well, you get your ODSP clawed back. Some people will say that this is a problem because it incentivizes people not to get back into the workforce, even though they could, because once you start making over the amount, well, you're only making about 25 cents on the dollar for every dollar you earn, because those benefits are clawed back incrementally as you make more money. So this is set to change things and try to put more people who are on ODSP into the workforce, increasing the monthly earning exemption from $200 to $1,000 per month. That means for the first $1,000 that anyone on ODSP makes, they'll be able to keep the entirety of that $1,000 instead of having to have so much clawed back from their benefits, making it less enticing to actually work. But at the very same time, this has been criticized because it is help for those who are on ODSP and are able to move around enough to be able to go back to work. But there are many people on ODSP that were looking for some sort of kind of increase because ODSP is very low when you're relying on that for your monthly income. Some people were saying, hey, we deserve a chop up to $2, but not from the Ontario government as of yet. And finally, for Ontario, we have something for students. They're called catch-up payments. This is something that Stephen Lecce, the education minister, has sort of brought in, saying that each child, you can get $200 to $250 of learning supports to try to get children caught up, pointing at the pandemic and recent labor disruptions, saying that students have fallen behind, and here's some extra money to pay for tutoring, pay for supplies and equipment. And this is something that you can apply for as of right now, and I believe all the way until March 2023 you can apply for this. By the way, I'm going to try my best to put as many links down there in the description so you can find this if you're looking for it. Next up, we're going to take a look at Quebec, and this is something that sort of was a campaign promise that is expected to come to fruition before the new year. You might know that Legault was voted in again, and as part of their campaign, they said, hey, we're going to send roughly $600 to people earning less than $50,000 a year, and $400 to people in Quebec that are earning between $50,000 and $100,000. Now, on top of that, seniors 70 and up, again, sort of deferring to what the federal government has done now, sort of saying, hey, seniors 65 to 70, well, we got nothing for you, but 70 and over, at least in this case, 75 when we're talking about the federal government, but 70 as the age range here in Quebec will get up to $2,000 in tax credits depending on those seniors' total income. And it is expected that next week is when this new bill will be brought into the provincial legislature to try to get this actually passed in the week of November 29th. So we're going to have to wait and see if this is actually able to pass and if they're going to make good on their campaign promise. Now on to Manitoba, and you might be a little bit frustrated because since the changes that were made in the summer, there's actually nothing new in terms of direct support for Manitobans. But as a recap of what was available, and what checks actually went out in September of this year, we're going to go over a couple of those details. We saw families making under $175,000 in 2021 receiving $250 if they have a child and then $200 for every additional child after that, as well as for seniors that had less than $40,000 in family income who also claimed an education property tax credit received a check of $300. They also bumped up employment insurance rates, giving an extra $50 per adult each month, as well as an additional $25 per household each month if you have a dependent. Now, as for Nova Scotia, it seems that the government recently announced that they're not going to be providing any further benefits, saying Nova Scotia is not going to take any further action to provide relief for people struggling to cope with skyrocketing inflation, and this compares to other eastern provinces that have actually brought things in. And this is what the criticism it has been from the opposition government, the NDP leader saying that it's troubling that they didn't bring in any additional supports, and how when you look at the different situation of Nova Scotia comparing to Quebec and New Brunswick and the different programs that they're bringing in, that perhaps this was a little bit underwhelming. As for Newfoundland and Labrador, well, you can see that they were a little bit more aggressive than Nova Scotia, saying that for all folks who are over the age of 18 as of December 31st, who filed their income taxes and had an income of less than $125,000, well, they're going to be getting a $500 payment, a check sent directly to them, as well as if you have between $100,000 and $125,000, you're going to be getting between $250 and $500, but as long as you have less than $100,000, you're going to be getting the full $500. Now, you don't need to apply for this benefit as long as you filled your income taxes or filed your income taxes in 2021 and do so at least before the end of the year this year, filing your previous year's tax returns. Well, it's going to be automatically applied for and automatically sent to you, that $500 payment. In PEI, they're recognizing that there's a higher cost of living, and this is exactly what the payment is for, coping with increases in the cost of living. And this is a $500 payment for individuals with a net income of up to $100,000. And if you have $100,000 up to $125,000, well, depending on where you are in that range, you'll still receive a payment, but it'll just be less than $500. Now, it doesn't matter if you're a couple. If you're a couple here, you're actually going to be able to get the full $500 each, $1,000 payments for couples, and this actually also goes for single parents. They could qualify for the full $1,000 even though there's only one parent there, as long as you have a net income of under $100,000. And couples and single parents between $100,000 and $145,000 in income in the previous year, well, you're going to be eligible for not the full $1,000, but sort of, again, a sliding scale based on how much you made between $100,000 and $145,000. If you're under $100,000, you're going to qualify for the maximum amount, $500 or $1,000 if you're a couple or a single parent. You're not going to need to apply for this either, it seems like, because this is going to be a one-time payment coming in January, and it's going to be distributed through the CRA, so they already have all your details as long as you file your federal income taxes. And finally, for New Brunswick, and this was announced back in June of 2022, a $225 benefit to low-income individuals and $450 to families, saying that more than 75,000 residents are going to be eligible for this money. Now, this may have already gone out, but the criticism remains from some of the Liberal Party in this province, saying that the average workers of this province are not getting any benefits from this announcement, saying that this amount is too little and people actually need more regular payments. Again, here, Green Party leaders saying people need additional money in their pockets month in and month out right now, not just this one-time payment that people may have already received. So I hope this video has been helpful for you. I'm going to put a bunch of links in the description of this video, so you should be able to scan through them and figure out which ones are there for you based on your individual province. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. I bring constant updates on Canadian news like this, as well as many other topics. So subscribe if you haven't already done so. It's one click and it's free, and I appreciate your support. But with all that said, thanks so much for watching. I really hope this video has helped you out at least a little bit, and I'll see you next time.